Our speaker tonight is the Honourable Justice Annabelle Bennett, AO. Like many of you here tonight, Justice Bennett and her husband, Dr. David Bennett, are long-standing supporters of our endowment fund. In fact, I'm sure they won't mind me sharing with you, they've been contributing annually to the foundation for 28 years now. Justice Bennett, and thank you. Justice Bennett is a judge of the Federal Court of Australia in New South Wales and the current chair of the National Health and Medical Research Council, which is the peak funding body for medical research in Australia, with an annual budget of about $8 million each year. She's additionally a judge of the Supreme Court of the ACT and President of the Copyright Tribunal of Australia and a presidential member of the Administrative Trials Tribunal. She's also been involved in a number of committees, including the Genetic Manipulation Advisory Committee, the Biotechnology Task Force, the Gene Patenting Advisory Committee, and has served as Pro-Chancellor of the Australian National University, Director of Sydney Children's Hospital Foundation, member of the Eastern Sydney Area Health Board, a Director of Neuroscience Research Australia, and President of the Australian Academy of Forensic Sciences. We are absolutely delighted that she accepted our invitation to speak to you tonight. I'm particularly looking forward to her insights into medical research and the role that philanthropy will play in defining healthcare and research in the future. Please join me in welcoming Justice Annabelle Bennett.
I'm a little bit shorter than Victoria. Fellow supporters of the St Vincent's Curran Foundation, thanks Victoria for that. That's put my age fairly squarely in the agenda, but anyway. I'm here actually to share with you some of the excitement of being, or at least feeling as if I'm being, part of Australia's medical research effort. There are some things I'm not going to mention. I'm not going to mention the fact that according to the annual report, the Darlinghurst campus collectively attracts the largest component of NHMRC funding. I'm not going to mention that the Darlinghurst campus as a network for the hospitals, universities and medical research institutes accords with the NHMRC vision of a national rather than a piecemeal approach to research and research outcomes. I'm certainly not going to give you a detailed description of the various grants that the NHMRC awards each year that recognise not only established researchers and research programs, but also, and we feel very importantly, career development and early career fellowships. I should mention, by the way, that our annual funding is not 8 million, it's 800 million. A bit of a difference. And then I'm also not going to tell you about what we call the MRFF, which I'll come back to, which is what you may be aware that the government's announced that it intends to set up a future fund of $20 billion. But what I will tell you is that, and I won't go into the detail of it, that one of the tragedies for Australian medical research is that while we are world standard, as most of you would know, the percentage of success of our applications is dropping dramatically. Because while the government maintained our research funding, and we were one of only two areas of government that I believe was not cut at all in the last budget, with the increasing cost of medical research and the numbers of applications, we've dropped below what is considered to be a very dangerous level of only 20% success, and it looks like it's going to head down south to about 16%. But as I'm not going to tell you any of that detail, what I will talk about is to share with you some of the horrible things that can happen when you get involved in an area outside your immediate field of expertise. One of the things that may happen to you is you go into government bodies and they all start talking in acronyms. So you heard already that NHMRC is the National Health and Medical Research Council. The MRFF is the Medical Research Future Fund. And when people bandy these around, you've got two choices. You either say to people, what on earth does that mean? Or you sit there and wonder what's going on, and you're the only one in the room, you think, who doesn't know. Well, this happened to me when I first heard the expression research translation. I moved into I've only been chair of the NHMRC Council for 2 years, and I was told that the one thing that's the most important aspect now for Australian medical research is research translation. So I listened to that for a while, and then finally I said, you know something, I don't actually know what research translation means. And the look of relief that went around the rest of the room was actually, totally tangible, and everyone heaved this big sigh of relief. And what I discovered was that it really means all things to all people. The idea is that it's all about the translation of medical research from bench to bedside. Now that you can understand means a lot of different things. It can mean any incremental movement from the laboratory, a little bit towards in vitro work, in vivo work, clinical trials, and then getting it out. But the hardest thing actually is getting it out, and that's where you come in. And it's interesting to see that here at the in the St Vincent's complex, or the Darlinghurst complex, you've got areas that are already totally targeting the idea of research translation. The St Vincent's Centre for Applied Medical Research covers things, as I conceive, working from stem cells to stroke rehabilitation to eating disorders. It engages in fundamental research, it disseminates the results widely, it provides training and teaching, and diagnostic service and patient care. But where is it that you come in? Well, very recently, I managed to get together a small group of what I would call, I suppose, thought leaders. It's not surprising that one of that small group was Charles Curran. And we sat around a table and we discussed the future of Australian medical research. And one of the things that came out, one of the most important things that came out of that round table, if you don't mind me sharing it with you, is the important role of philanthropy and private funding and how it needs to be integrated, because while the government is giving a lot of money, and that's terrific, and we applaud the government's commitment to medical research, that doesn't mean that it's all happening and that none of you need to care, because there is a gap. There's an enormous gap between the research and getting it out into the community. Now let me give you a couple of stories that I learned just this week about how it can happen and why, and where private funding comes in. Here tonight is David Brown. David Brown is a physician scientist and he works within the Darlinghurst complex. David, where are you? I saw you earlier. Put your hands up. He's right over there. No, I don't want to embarrass him. I'm embarrassing him. He's in the corner. Winnie's next term. He investigates neuroimmunological mechanisms and disease therapies. And he shared with me Sam Bright's story. Sam Bright, you may know, was awarded in his year one of the best 10 research applications in the country. They were working on obesity and cancer cachexia, which is weight loss in cancer, I discovered. I wasn't afraid to ask that either. Now, that is presently being licensed out. They've got 3 companies licensing various aspects of this research throughout the world. But those companies won't come in and do it just from the laboratory. But they went and got private funding. One person gave money to that research group that enabled them to get it to a proof of concept stage where they could take it internationally. Now, what is that going to mean? That's going to mean that's going to be marketed, and then it's going to, the results will come back not only to them, but to the whole of Australia. Because I don't know, one thing I didn't know, what do you think is the largest manufactured export that Australia has? Does anyone know? The largest manufactured export. It's medicines and medical devices. Now, people don't know that, and we do that so well. And really, this is an area that has great growth. So David is amazing. What he's doing is outstanding. And he urges that funding for fundable research that won't get NHMRC funding, because otherwise it just won't get translated. Then I also met this week the wonderful Dr. Winnie Tong. Winnie is just there. And she's a physician scientist also, and she's doing her PhD, and she's working at AMR in a cross-campus way in the clinical research program and the immunovirology program. Now, she's looking at immune responses to HPV, that's the human papillomavirus. That's looking at preventing cancer from HPV, not only in homosexual men, but also more broadly. Now, this could have a worldwide impact. Now, the NHMRC is funding some of the work on men, but we can't fund everything, because we are funding everything from private research right across the field to public health. And that work will only be able to be fulfilled if she gets extra funding. And what has happened? She's got some help. She got some help from the foundation, and that help, it sounds small, but the impact of it is huge. The foundation has provided her with a research assistant. Now can you imagine the percentage increase to her work output, to her research output, because she has a research assistant to help her carry out those experiments. And that's when she's not doing clinical work. So this sort of thing is really exciting. It works. It's fun. And the more you get involved in it, the more you'll understand the acronyms. Because while we're working, now at the moment, it really is, it's the best of times, the government's giving us a commitment, but it's the worst of times because the burden of disease is getting stronger, the cost of the medical research is getting higher, the cost of healthcare in the community is getting higher. And of course, the one example that the government has given money to that we're now going to use as a sort of, I can share that with you too, as a sort of a test case for how we can get national things happening is dementia research. Now, thanks to Victoria, you've probably guessed that I'm getting that over 55 thing has been looking a little bit scary for a little while. And that, I'm told, is now the most feared disease in the broader community, and that is Alzheimer's and dementia issues. We're all frightened of it. The research has to take place. We're looking at doing it now in a national way. St Vincent's and the Darlinghurst campus are involved in it, and you can be involved in it. I mean, I just think it is so exciting. If you met these researchers, and I'm sure many of you have, they are people who are so committed, they're so much fun, they are doing such a broad range of work in this country, and if we could just take one more blue sky research application and fund it and get that out there, can you imagine what that will mean? Not only to our health, but to our economy too. Now, I told Victoria to give me a hint if I'm just about there. I think I'm there. I was so scared that I would talk too long. I probably have, especially as you all took so long to come here and sit down. because I'm now standing between you and the drinks, as they say yet again. But look, I congratulate you all. I congratulate you for being here. I congratulate you for contributing. I congratulate the St Vincent's Curran Foundation. And I have to remember to say St Vincent's Curran Foundation because, of course, as you heard, I've been involved in the Curran Foundation for a long, long time. So congratulations, all of you. Thank you for having me. Do what you can to make sure the government keeps funding going to the NHMRC. Lots of positive statements about the importance of medical research. You'd be amazed how it gets back, and look at it, it actually has had an outcome. So thank you very much for inviting me here tonight, and enjoy the rest of the evening.